following is a paid program. Content is provided by Hurrdat Media and may contain pre-recorded material.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
Welcome to it, midweek editions here. It's Hail Varsity, Chris Schmidt, Justice Rhodey, and you, 489-1240. 489-1240 to get in, 800-825-5865. Don't want to call, that's okay. Just jump on into the stream. The water is much warmer than outside. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter. Find, like, subscribe, follow both of those. Also, the podcast, Mr. Husker Football, Mike Babcock, is already in the green room. I think he is probably playing, he might be playing Me and My Uncle. I think that's the Grateful Dead song. I'm going to say Babbers is rocking in the backdrop in the Great Football Office where he is at in hour two. Evan Bland coming up from the Omaha World Herald. We'll have a Jock Doc with Dr. Brandon Seifert. Anthony Davis. Once Mr. Miyagi gets done with Berke Buchton gel, send him to Dallas. Can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. So some news and notes. Matt Patricia to college football. Yay. We'll see what that means. Barry Alvarez is in football hell. And really good mailbag. I always like reading Stuart Mandel's mailbag. When we first started doing this, Stuart would come on, and it's pretty cool to see what he's done with the Athletic. And so the college football expectations and tiers, that was a good mailbag question. Justice and I and Babbers will try and tackle not only where Nebraska is, but what the expectations are realistically, or at least based on your brand and your funding. So we'll hit that. We will spend some time talking Nebraska basketball. How big a hill is it tomorrow night at PBA, 7:30 versus Maryland? Maryland, one of the hottest teams in the Big Ten. Nebraska has gotten a lot of those teams in this stretch, but they've performed well in this 4-game win streak. So we'll spend some time on that. We'll get our starting 5 shout-outs going, all that straight ahead. As, it's interesting how kids react to a snow day. And, I started off yesterday talking about a text I got from Junior. Well, Junior's at work now. I hope so. Anyway, I think he was able to get out of the neighborhood. The streets were fine, but he has been we got grounded from his car last night until work called. He got yelled at a couple of different times. He got double teamed. My wife and I yelled at him a couple of times last night just because he's not doing what he needs to do. We need to send him to Matt Rule football camp. When we talk about practice habits, daily routine, and all that good stuff, you kind of slap yourself and say, gee, mom and dad knew what they were talking about. That's why adults adult well compared to upper teens with the routine thing. But you know what? Nebraska trying to find their routine when we get to the level and tier of Big Ten football. Get to the phones here in a minute. Mike checking in first. Hey, Mike. Mike Corrigan, good to have you. Ronnie is here. Says, a.k.a. Fender Bender reporting in. Ronnie, I hope not. Uncle Larry's here. Says, somebody shut the front door. Arlo checks in. Arlo, good to have you. QB1 Ace from Arkansas. Tell me how the weather is, QB1 Ace. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is here. Justin in says, howdy, y'all. Just 2 days till baseball. We'll get Babber's take on Husker baseball as well. Casper checks in, says, one of the benefits of being sick is being in early. I'm using the time to figure out how much better than a redshirt freshman fifth-year offensive lineman needs to be to make the roster over
the red shirt.
The red shirt. Thank you. I need glasses, clearly. NASCAR Eric is here. Good to have NASCAR Eric. The other Dave is in. Anonymous is here. Good to have Anonymous in. It says at least all the recruits that come here see snow and finally get to have some. That's a spin. I'm sure all these South Florida talents reveling into today.
Remember when Ja'Cory Barney first saw snow and he slipped and absolutely hit the bricks his first time?
Yeah.
That was really funny. I'm not going to lie.
It's a hazard.
And then that kid became pretty good.
Yeah. Kobe, good to have you, Kobe. Uncle Jimmy is here. Says snow day for the border collies at home. Gertrude, the German Shepherd, didn't want to do her business outside because it was too cold, so she did it in the basement. She is also grounded. That's my day. All right, that's my day. My kid, my dog, and away we go. It's too early for Jack Daniels. Who's on the phone?
Oh, we got Steve from Lincoln wants to talk Husker basketball.
All right, Steve, good to have you, brother. What do you know?
Thank you much, Chris and Justice. You guys have a full plate. I'm getting right to it. Tell us, nutshell, what has to happen so the men's Nebraska basketball team can win tomorrow night? You've got the hot mic, Chris.
Steve, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for the call. Well, you need more than a combined, 20 points from Gary and Bryce. You need better shooting than 9 of 23 from both of them. You probably need another 17 points from Captain Morgan.
That'd be pretty nice.
And Bearcase scored 8 and played pretty well with that 6'10" size. So that's going to be the big thing is how does Nebraska counter? Quite honestly, Maryland survived at home 69-66. They did it on 4 of 12 shooting from Queen and Reese. They did have 17 rebounds. Maryland did go 10 of 25 from three-point land, but Nebraska won the points in the paint. Nebraska 6 of 16 from three-point land. Nebraska bad from the free throw line. Only 11 trips to the line, only 6 of 11.
Not good.
13 turnovers, 13 points off those turnovers for Maryland. Cut the turnovers in half, double your free throw attempts, triple your makes. That's creative math. And I think Gary and Bryce need to combine for 40.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good recipe right there. I look to get Connor Essegian going a little bit more, see if he can ride a home hot streak, see if he can get going, free him up some looks. I wouldn't hate going zone in this game a little bit more, see what Fred tries to do, or maybe get really creative with some of the baseline traps that him and Nate Lenzer throw out. I think anything you can do to get Jacoby Gillespie, Selton Miguel, and Rodney Rice out of rhythm is anything that can help you. I don't think Deshaun Harris-Smith is really going to try to force the issue from beyond the arc. I think he's the guy who's going to try to be the rim pressure threat, get the ball to Queen and Reese, and start to get things going. One of the better entry passers I've seen in the Big Ten, getting those two guys touches. So anything that Nebraska can do to slow down Reese and Queen on the boards, maybe throw some of the shooters that Maryland has out of rhythm, and then you got to get out and transition and see if you can get your guys hunting shots early. I think that's the key for Nebraska to be successful and get the crowd into it early.
That is absolutely, a key part of this recipe, Steve, is home energy, home juice. It's going to be butt cold, as Grandpa said from Grumpy Old Men. And you're going to brave it because you're going to go see Nebraska tomorrow night at 7:30. You're going to see Nebraska potentially take down a 5th win in a row in conference play and pull even. You're going to pour a beer and enjoy it at PBA. And you're probably going to be the difference maker if they are to win. It is going to be a juiced environment. It's going to be a festive student section. It's going to be all of those things that make PBA brutally tough to win at.
I also think that something that goes into it. They have to find a way to go at Race and Queen early, get them in foul trouble, beat them up physically. I know, when you look at two bigs and when teams have two exceptional bigs, the thing you got to do is go right at them. You can't try to spray it around and get cute early. Just go right into the heart of the defense and challenge them at the rim. I think Bryce can do that. I think Jawan can do that. I think you can get Andrew Morgan going early. Maybe see some Braxton Mia out there if you want to go with more size. Try to beat them up physically on the interior. I think that's another avenue that they can take at that. It's going to be, even with some of the weather we're experiencing, I think a pretty juiced crowd. And I think this is an opportunity for Nebraska to pull even in conference play, which if you'd have told anybody 4 or 5 games ago that could be a reality, I think they'd have looked at you and laughed. But this is an opportunity, and a massive one, to get a ranked win over a team that's playing some really good basketball right now. And I think there's a lot of avenues to do it, but being physical and getting inside looks early for your best guys, certainly another option.
It was something to behold when Nebraska is feeling it, the crowd is feeling it, and you have an atmosphere that is pretty untouchable. Little edge to it, little anger to it with Nebraska basketball fans, and it'll be needed. It'll be needed tomorrow night. Take Maryland down. They correct me if I'm wrong. Did they blow a lead, or did they? No, they came back against Illinois. Is that right? What's the?
Oh, they got up. They were kind of down early. Illinois got them down, and then they came storming.
They came back
and
and
then
won.
They blew them out by 25.
Right. They were down 17 at one point.
Right.
So I mean, they're playing phenomenal basketball, and it's Nebraska's job to kind of keep pace, and home court will do it. How about Gavin Griffiths? Right. He's been milk carton guy that showed some promise at Rutgers. Is he somebody you turn to? Do you ride with Kale a little bit? Do you put Jawan at the 4?
I think it's a total team effort. You look at Gavin Griffiths played about 5% of his minutes, at the 3 spot. He's gotten a lot of run as a stretch 4, trying to in the non-con really try to break teams out. I think you could see multiple combinations. I think they could go size, put Andrew Morgan at the 4, start Braxton Mee at the 5. If they wanted to go more size, I think Jawan Gary at the 4 to try to space Derek Queen out, take advantage of the fleet feet on the perimeter, I think is another option. I think there's a multitude of ways you can go. You could put Kel Jacobson in there and get really funky with some of the lineups you want to do. All viable options. I think the one that you end up turning to the most is playing Jawan Gary at the 4. I think that's an option that they go to, try to get Roley out there. I think Nebraska tries to get big at the guard spot. I think that's the avenue. I think they try to take advantage of some of the length and the physicality they have at the guard spot and try to really get after them. If we see Gavin Griffiths, I firmly believe it's because Fred has full confidence that the 3-point shot is there. He's confident in the looks that he can get, and he'll try to get him some easy in rhythm looks early to get the touch going if we see Gavin Griffiths. But I think Nebraska tries to go inverse, get big at the guard spot, and try to wear down Maryland physically on the inside, try to get points in the paint early.
Well, and you look at the turnover issues. A lot of that was Nebraska's bigs the first time against Maryland. The other part of this too, what do you get out of Braxton Mia? Time to really truly be next man up. He is good at finding the rim. Most of his shots have been made off of dunks, but listen, he had minimal points, but when he was called upon, he performed. He had a couple of big makes, and he had 2 and 1s the last outing. So that was impressive. That was important. He's got to stay ready.
And that's another thing is with the physicality. Can we get the Braxton Mia that we had in the Diamond Head Classic where he looked on point, was rotating, was playing physical, looked like the biggest, most dominant guy on the floor? Or do you get the Braxton Mia early in the non-con where everybody was wondering, can the guy even catch a pass? It's really, he's got to take a mentality that, this is his last year of college basketball. It's time to step up and really help this team get to a new level. And it starts on the interior by, shoving Julian Reese around, not letting Derek Queen get physical on the boards and really forcing Maryland to close off possessions after a one-and-done trip on the offensive end. I think for Braxton Mia, it's going to be important to showcase that physicality and that length that he possesses and really give Nebraska an edge vertically.
Let's talk college football. Let's talk Nebraska and the tiers of the college football playoff. Again, Stuart Mandel mailbag. And the breakdown is this. We'll get Babber's take on it, but if you're tier 1 in college football, you expect to compete for a national title every year. You don't celebrate anything less. It's title or bust. It was Michigan, the last rodeo, a Harbaugh. It was, all right, how do you salvage a season that was disappointing only to the Ohio State fans after the Michigan loss and the Oregon loss. Well, you go win the whole bleeping thing, said Jake Taylor in Major League. Tier 2, you expect to make the college football playoff nearly every year, that year in, year out basis. A deep run is a success. Do you get to the semis? Do you get that first round win? Do you host? Tier 3, you make the college football every 5 years or so. It and considers it a success to win a game or two in it. That's kind of your developmental program in my mind, where you're on the cusp of it. You just don't do it every year, but you build up to a special season where you can possibly go deep. Tier 4, you make the college football playoff every 10 years, and you're excited to win just once. Tier 5, you are Cinderella. You get in, and you're happy to be there. You get bludgeoned while there, and that's Indiana. So a couple of teams that were mentioned in a tweet by our dear friend Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. You have two teams in the Big Ten that are listed in Tier 3. That's Michigan State. That's Wisconsin. And I'm sorry, I don't see the state of either program right now as being a 3 to 5 year buildup. I just don't. Your Tier 4 team includes Nebraska, includes Iowa. I think that should be flipped. We'll talk about it with Babbers next.
Playhouse. Tevye the Milkman believes in tradition while the whole world changes around him in this Broadway classic. The amazing score includes If I Were a Rich Man, Matchmaker, and Sunrise Sunset. Fiddler on the Roof is sponsored by Russ's Market, Kepke Electric, 1011 Cares, and KFOR. For tickets, LincolnPlayhouse.com. Lincoln Community Playhouse, a Lincoln theater tradition since 1946.
Race to savings on everything to upgrade your home at Menards. Easily create your dream kitchen with Clearview Cabinetry. With so many styles to choose from, you'll be sure to find plenty of options that you will love. Start your project today and save big on Clearview Cabinetry. Visit Menards.com to view our entire selection of Clearview cabinets today. Plus, view our weekly flyer on Menards.com and race to savings on great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards. If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Your wife says you're crabby. Your kids say you won't get off the couch, and you're sick of hearing about it. Find out what's really wrong by having your levels checked at Limitless Male. Our lab testing is in-house, so within 15 minutes, Limitless Male will know if you have low testosterone. And if it is low T, our medical providers will offer alternatives to get you on the fast track to a better you. So don't monkey around with wannabe experts. See the real men's health experts. Free consult at limitlessmale.com.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Justin Rhodey, Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter. Mike Babcock with us from Hail Varsity and Herdad Sports at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, how's the sidewalk? How's the driveway? Did you knock that out?
I did not, but I have a great neighbor.
Good answer.
We have a great neighbor who has a snow blower, who does sidewalks, the driveway. He's been there twice today.
So that's code for Babbers didn't put the coveralls on and do any snow angels in the end zone.
No, I didn't. But this neighbor, Don, is a remarkable individual and doesn't just do ours. He does others as well.
That's big, man. That's good.
Yeah, that's huge. It's great for the neighborhood.
How many snow games have been in Memorial Stadium? Do we have to go all the way back to the Sparty game and Frost's first year? Prior to that, was it the Kansas or was it K-State with old Rod?
K-State, I think it was K-State. Was that the one where Bill Shepard at halftime drove the tractor down there to clear off the field?
I think so. Yeah.
Not too many of them.
No, they're cool though. They're cool to watch.
Yeah, well, if you're not sitting out in the stands,
that's about right. That's about right. We'll get your thoughts on some Husker baseball and get into some Nebraska basketball as well. But want to get your take here on these tier listings. Again, Stuart Mandel from The Athletic. Tier 1, you're in the college football playoff and beyond. You're vying for a title every year. Every year nearly is Tier 2. Tier 3, 3 to 5 year buildup. You're in the playoff every 3 to 5 years. Tier 4, you make the college football playoff every 10 years. Excited to win once. Nebraska lands in Tier 4. Per Stuart Mandel, there's 19 teams. There's 12 teams in Tier 2. There's 10 in Tier 3. There's Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, the three amigos in Tier 1. Does Nebraska to you feel more like a Tier 4 team, while the expectations realistically are probably Tier 3, where you're making it every 3 to 5 years? That's the realistic expectations. The unrealistic / well, this is how it always used to be expectations is you're vying for a title every year. T.O. and crew made it look real easy because they were knocking on that door more often than not. And if you go back and look, it was about a decade where you'd have a spurt. You look at Devaney's final couple of years where they go and win back-to-back and didn't get a three-peat that final season, but were still top 10. Fast forward to the early 80s where you have a title shot against Clemson, a sideline call away from maybe playing for another one in 82. You were right there in 83. All of the 80s, you were on the doorstep, quite honestly, of you would have been a playoff team most of the 1980s. Get into the 90s, you fast forward to 93. Again, 10 years later, you're putting together a spurt of just succession of championship appearances playing at that level. So that's what Osborne did. But Tier 4, does that seem low? I know where Nebraska's at. They just made a bowl game and the first time in forever. But every 10 years moving forward with NIL, with the fan base, with the league you're in, that seems a little bit short, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're not wrong. The key word is expectations, because Nebraska, I don't think Nebraska is there at this point. That's the thing that you're looking at, and probably that Mandel had Nebraska in that Tier 4 because the Huskers are not where they need to be. The expectations are, I think, realistically, in this day and age, probably tier 3. That's where Nebraska deserves to be or should be, but it's not there yet. And we're going to see if the upcoming season is productive enough to push Nebraska into that group. I agree with you with what you said earlier. I don't know that Wisconsin and Michigan State belong in that category. But again, Nebraska has to establish itself, has to meet expectations in order to move up into that. And the list included Iowa and Nebraska were the first two in the tier 4. So maybe that had some significance. I don't know, but again, you have to move up. You have to be able to do what the expectations are before you're going to be moved.
I just see it's going to take that breakthrough year where you win 9 or 10 and you're on the cusp of a playoff berth, right? You look at what Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State have consistently done. Michigan took a step or two back record-wise, right? They dropped some games. They certainly didn't drop the previous 2 seasons, one with a championship, one with a college football Final Four appearance, right? They beat who they were supposed to beat in conference. Florida State's reeling off of a great season. The bottom fell out there. Miami's constantly underachieved. Notre Dame's risen up. They are no longer an 8-5. Well, they misstepped X, Y, and Z with that schedule. No, they delivered big time this year. Oregon for sure is a threat every year. Clemson, I think more so because of their league. They're not what they once were. Florida, we'll see. Oklahoma's been, quite honestly, underachieving as well. But Texas and LSU, they're both at that level. Texas has been the last 2 years, and LSU needs to get back to being better than 9-3. Ole Miss right now is in that tier 3 along with A&M and Tennessee. I agree with that. I think Washington can rise back up to power and be there. We didn't see USC, but to me, with the talent level they have out there, they should be looking at every 3 to 5 years. But with Nebraska, it's not just a thing to get there, Babbers. It's also about sustainability, where, all right, if you don't get into the playoff, you're right there. You have an Ole Miss type season, right, where you have some big wins, but you just get left out because your conference is so stacked. Penn State, to me, right now is in that tier 2 where they're going year in and year out. And can you supplant some of those teams in your league right now, or because the Big Ten's so good, so dominant, so deep, can you be added to the party? That's also a question.
Yeah, well, and we're still learning, what the dynamic is there with the expansion of the conference and where Nebraska fits in and how difficult it is to move up to where Nebraska wants to be. I'm surprised. So Texas is not in tier 1.
They're not.
I think Texas should be, because I think Texas has the resources and
talent.
Talent and the traditional respect of a program that has had that kind of, we've got a shot at a national championship. It's that one surprised me. But again, Nebraska has to prove that it belongs in tier 3, and it's not there yet.
Yeah, Mike, when you look at that tier 3 and some of these programs that Nebraska, like Schmitty said, is trying to supplant or usurp in these rankings, what are a couple of teams that you look at not only in the conference but nationally? I think Washington's a name that you could certainly supplant if you have a good year or two. I think you can start hawking down some of the Ole Misses and the A&Ms of the world, and maybe even a Tennessee. You play them in a couple of years, for goodness sakes. But who are a couple of these programs that you look at that you say, if Nebraska can put it together, they can supplant?
So Nebraska, well, okay. I see Utah, I see Boise State, I see TCU. I think those are programs that Nebraska can move ahead of. That Nebraska is certainly if they belong there, Same way with Michigan State, as we mentioned earlier, in Wisconsin. The Tier 3 schools, I think there are several of those that Nebraska can supplant, or is in the discussion, is in the competitive discussion there. Looking at Tier 2, little more difficult, although Notre Dame jumped in there. And, Notre Dame has that great tradition going for it. That's one of the things that I think you have to have in this kind of discussion, is you have to have some tradition attached to your program in order to be included in these higher tiers. And Nebraska has that.
Mike, when it comes to coaching, not only talent acquisition and management, but coaching's a big deal. Sark's a brilliant play caller. Brian Kelly's supposed to be all of that. Michigan, right? And of course, Oregon, their head coach, Lanning, all sorts of pats on the back. Dabo's well respected. I like Cristobal a lot, but he's not delivered yet at Miami. Florida State's been a bit of a mess this year. How do you think Nebraska can compare with this new look staff coaching wise? Because that's going to be a difference maker as well.
Well, I like Rule's approach. I like his attitude. I like what he says. He made some comment about no more 6-6. They're moving on from that kind of thing. And I think his expectations for players and his demands and attention to detail, I think that he's the right person for the job. I think he can get it done. And I think it's, I may have said this before, but his attention to detail is significant. And I see that reflected in, for example, media availability. Everything is up front. He goes through everything, I think, to see what people said, controls that. And I think that that's an attention to detail kind of thing that reflects how he approaches his coaching position. So I think they've got the right guy. And if he makes selections for his assistants, and he made it, it's been a turnover here. I think he's made good decisions in bringing in people like Eckler among them for special teams. I just think that they have the pieces in place. Now they've got to do it.
Babbers, hang tight. Can we get some overtime?
Sure.
All right, there he is. Mike Babcock with us at MD Babs on Twitter.
Class A, it's Papillion, La Vista South, visits Lincoln Northeast. You can join Elijah Herbal for the play-by-play. Coverage starts at 7:05 right here.
FM 101.5, 1240 AM, KFOR.
Are you tired of buying new shoes because of pain and discomfort in your ankles, knees, hips, feet, or lower back? Maybe you don't need new shoes. Maybe you need high-quality support in your shoes. That's where the Good Feet store can help you. Like Teresa.
I was in foot pain for 20 years, trying to give it relief, buying all these different insoles. I bought all these products, and not a single one worked. I really, truly needed to have relief in my feet, and the Good Feet arch supports were what gave me the relief I needed. I can wear these arch supports in all my shoes. Cowboy boots, running shoes, walking shoes, flat shoes, heels. It makes me so happy. If you ask my husband, he will crack up because there is no store I would rather go in than a shoe store.
Live the life you love. Come to the Good Feet store today. Visit the store at 27th and Pine Lake Road across from South Point Mall, or book your free fitting at goodfeet.com. Good Feet arch supports are proudly made in the USA. Come in and take a free test walk today.
Hey, this is Dan Bongino, the former NYPD police officer, Secret Service agent, and a TV host. I'll bring Nebraska an honest perspective on the day's events. I'll debunk the nonsense you hear in the media and give you the real insight on what's really going on. Join me, Dan Bongino, weekdays from 11 to 2 on FM 101.5 and 1240 AM KFOR.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow Get down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or Avastin-capted Pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Ever have one of those days where your gut just feels blah?
Ugh, yes.
Occasional bloating or gas could be signs that your gut is out of balance. But Align Probiotic can help. Align 24/7 Digestive Support is a daily use probiotic with a unique strain.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity continues. Some overtime with Mr. Husker football Mike Babcock with us at MD Babs on Twitter. So, Mike, we're hitting these tier discussions. We talked coaching. We talked expectations. Nebraska currently in tier 4, where every 10 years it's a playoff appearance and you're just happy to be there. Doesn't seem to jibe with Coach Rule's expectations, but you got to go do it on the field. We're all in agreement there. We like the coaching, and then the changes to the coaching staff with Dana and with Mad Dog Eckler, or we'll just call him Mr. Piranha. Eckler being back in Lincoln's good stuff. How about talent level? What do you foresee in comparison to the tier 3, the tier 2s, the tier 1s? We know that the tier 1s and 2s have a lot of more Jimmies and Joes, but Nebraska's, hey, be it portal or through their new South Florida connection, Nebraska's kind of ramping up their recruiting profile as well.
Yeah, I think the Huskers are trending in that direction. I think that's the key. And, I'm not totally sold on, well, he's a 5-star, so that's what you want. You have to find guys that fit your system, guys that fit your needs. I think Rule does that, but you also want to have some of those guys in there. I think there are a couple in the transfer portal that are coming to Nebraska that were former 5-star players coming out of high school. And then you've got Dylan Raiola. I think you need some of those, but the important part of it is, do they fit your system? Do they fit into the plans? Are they willing to compete? Because when you come here, the way Rule approaches it, you better be willing to compete for the job, or you're not going to get it. And that's the same way that Holgerson is with the offensive players. You've got to compete for your job. And we've mentioned this before, but it was the way when Holgerson came in, Thomas Finoni didn't get a play right away, significant time, because apparently he didn't produce in practice. And then once he got beyond that, he was back on the field. But you have to have the right guys. You have to have the competitive guys. I think that Nebraska is trending in that direction, definitely.
Mike, you had a chance to get up close with Will Bolt yesterday, and really a ton of excitement for Nebraska baseball, not only their pre-conference schedule, but also their pre-conference selection. I mean, they're picked right there with Oregon to win the Big Ten, and ton of experience, ton of talent. Now it's time to harness it, and it's going to be kind of a new Big Ten world, but that's a good thing RPI-wise. What do you like about this Big Ten slate, and more importantly, what do you like about this Nebraska baseball team?
What I like is that the obvious thing, I guess, it's a mature team. I think mature was the word that one of the players used. But it's a veteran team. I guess that's what Will Bolt said. And yeah, it's Dylan Carey that said that. He called it a mature team. Said that 65% of the hits were back from last season. And, that's a reason for optimism. And I think the excitement around the baseball team is justified because of the number of players that are coming back, because of the experience that they have, because of what Will Bolt wants to do with them. And, he said something about you'd like to have 6 guys that are kind of settled in at positions, and then 3 or 4 guys that, kind of rotate, or you can use depending upon right, left-handed pitching and so forth. I just think that they have everything that they need to be successful. And you look at some of these preseason projections, Nebraska has gotten players. Mason McConaughey has gotten second and third team All-America preseason recognition already. Golden Spikes Award, he's on that list of players preseason. They just got Luke Broderick, the junior college transfer, was just put on a list of closers, relief pitchers, those kinds of recognition. Gabe Swanson has gotten some recognition. He had a rough start to last season, but finished strong. Will Bolt referred to him as a potential All-American. I just think that Nebraska has the talent. 3 of the top 4 starters from last year are back. I didn't look at the number of the top hitters, but a significant number of those were back. And I just think that the pieces are in place there for the kind of success that is being expected with the preseason ranking.
All right, loaded question when we get you out. Any elements or remnants of this team remind you of 05, 02, 01?
Yeah, I think so. I think that because of the number of players you have returning, and because of what I see as a great head coach, the gritty beats pretty, Will Bolt, and Rob Childress as the pitching coach. I think you've got a really good way to start to do the kinds of things that the teams that you're talking about did. And if you play your potential and you compete to your potential, I think you're in that conversation.
Mike, we'll do this again next week, partner. Appreciate you much for jumping on. Thanks for a little overtime.
Thanks for having me, guys.
There he is, Mike Babcock, with us from Hale Varsity, heard at Sports at MD Babs on Twitter. Got it all covered there. Some football, little baseball thought. Mr. Snitley, Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, weighs in. The basketball thought, a 3-point threat like Griffiths could help spacing. You get spacing, you get Bryce downhill. Black Hills Brennan has chimed in. I don't know how snowy it is up in the Black Hills, Brennan, but I'm sure it's scenic. Game Dog, sorry, man, just missed this. Says, does Mike remember back in 75 after the regular season when T.O. called for a playoff because he wasn't happy with the bowl selection? Did they end up in the Blue Bonnet? No, that might have been the Freedom Bowl. Game Dog. I think they played Mississippi State. Does that sound right? I think I remember seeing a program of that thing with Elvis on the cover. Fiesta, Arizona State, Danny White. Yeah, they were still in the WAC. That didn't go well. That didn't go well at all. 17-14, something like that. But gotta love this baseball squad. We'll hear more about Big Red Baseball from Evan Bland, some football thoughts as well on the way. And we'll put a bow on this tier talk. We'll resurrect it a little bit at 5:25. You're going to want to stick around and hear our dear friend Barry Alvarez lose it on Madison radio.
It's quite entertaining.
That's on the way. Hail Varsity continues.
Since 2013, the First Job Lincoln program has offered high school juniors and seniors direct access to career options and internships, preparing them to enter the workforce for the first time. Unlike other typical summer jobs for teens, First Job Lincoln gives students an opportunity to explore a variety of careers that they would usually not be able to access as a high school student. And First Job Lincoln provides employers an opportunity to seek out qualified candidates for future open positions. First Job Lincoln gives students an avenue to explore real career choices, helping them see themselves in Lincoln in an exciting and rewarding career. For more information on First Job Lincoln, students and businesses can visit lincolnhr.org and search for First Job Lincoln, or go to selectlincoln.org and find First Job Lincoln under the Connect with Talent menu. Thanks, and have a great week.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Plus free home delivery. Ends President's Day. Exclusively the Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Lucky Larry's Landscaping, Larry! Larry saved his business money with a quick commercial auto quote from Progressive. Does it help he's his own marketing manager, accountant, executive assistant, and never been late? Technically, yes, but saving really put him over the edge. So, Larry, give Larry a round of applause. Be your own Larry. See if you could save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Shopping for new flooring is different today. Getting your questions answered, making the right selection, getting the best value, and installed quickly and professionally. Visit ostreetcarpet.com or shop our store. We'll answer all your questions and help you make the right choice. You'll be enjoying your new floor at Just Days for less than you'd pay elsewhere. Carpet, vinyl, wood, laminate, tile, and area rugs. We've got it all.
O Street Carpet.
1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
Trust is a foundation of any strong relationship. It's earned every day.
At 1011, it's the way we cover the community we call home.
Working hard to fact check, verify, and get the story right.
It means alerting you first to severe weather and preparing for what's ahead.
It's telling the stories that bring us together and make us proud to be Nebraska. Trust Cole Miller.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back one final time this hour. It's Hail Varsity. Find us, the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. When you search Hail Varsity Radio, download, like, subscribe, take us with. And, of course, Hail Varsity YouTube. Chris Schmidt, Justice Rhodey, at Justice Rhodey on Twitter, at Schmidt_radio. You can follow me there. Big thanks to Mike Babcock. We hit the college football tiers. Nebraska, not tears in your beer, but 1 through 5 when it comes to what you should be doing as a college football program. We'll get Evan Bland's take on that here in about 10 minutes. But right now, Nebraska slated in that tier 4 spot where you go every 10 years. You hope to win in the playoff. So my question is this with the tiers, what are you expecting from some of those other teams trying to climb the ladder? Do you expect Indiana to get back to the playoff? Do you expect Indiana to be, and I know some early FanDuel numbers out there with odds to get to the playoff has Indiana up there. Nebraska comes in as the number 6 team when it comes to betting odds to get in the conference. This might be conference. I got my wires crossed if it's a zoom out where you're taking the field or just the conference. But, 3 to 5 years, I think Nebraska needs to be knocking on that door. I think that's all in agreement down there at 10th and Vine. That's how the head coach, the players, that's why they're doing all this. That's why they're spending the money. That's why they're really making changes on the coaching staff. That's why you're going after high profile and high talent guys at quarterback. That's why you're trying to go get a couple of supplemental guys on the offensive line right now till your younger pups get ready to rock and roll on the offensive line. That's why you spent money to keep a Keona Davis and a Van Poppel, and you get a guy or two or three in this recruiting class like a Simpson. So, hey, it's all there in front of him, but no one's hitting pause and nobody wants to lose ground. But I look at it in Indiana. I think Jonathan Smith's an incredible coach. You've been able to win in the recent past at Michigan State with D'Antonio. He got a bunch of dudes with chips on their shoulder, and they were really good, and then they were developed. So I don't see a world where Michigan and Michigan State are up in the same year. One's got to be kind of floundering a little bit. When I say floundering, 6-6-ish, right? And then the others at that 8-9 win number. There'll be a year, I believe, either with expanded playoff or more politicking by the SEC and the Big Ten, where you're going to get 4, 5, 6 in. So right now, did you have a team in the Big Ten as a 4 spot? Probably not. I mean, you got your 3 in, you got your Penn State, you got your 4. Excuse me. Do you have a 5th? I think in future years you're going to have a 5th. You might have a 6th.
I mean, there's certainly a way that Iowa could sneak into that conversation. Sure. I mean, look at how consistent they've been.
10-2 with a big win in Kinnick against a Michigan or an Ohio State.
They could totally do it.
So, and same with Nebraska.
Yep, they absolutely could. Get a big win in Memorial.
So it's there, but I think you're just going to see more Big Ten. All right, Evan Bland on the way. As we'll catch up with him next. Hour 2 coming up.
And all-out racing. It's the only place to see the world's best riders tear up the dirt in your favorite Monster Jam trucks, like Gravedigger, El Toro Loco, Megalodon, and more. It's big-time fun for the whole family. Monster Jam, as big as it gets. Coming to Pinnacle Bank Arena April 18th through the 19th. Brought to you by BKT Tires. Tickets on sale now at monsterjam.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney or if I look like an attorney, I'll apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare without me being an attorney. And I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call, and you will not talk to an attorney. And I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-707-8989. 800-707-8989. 800-707-8989.
Ever have one of those days where your gut just feels blah?
Ugh, yes.
Occasional bloating or gas could be signs that your gut is out of balance. But Align Probiotic can help. Align 24/7 Digestive Support is a daily use probiotic with a unique strain to help relieve occasional digestive issues. It's the #1 doctor-recommended brand. So when you feel the signs, it's time to try Align. Align Probiotic. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Lincoln's local news, talk, sports, and weather station. FM 101.5, 1240 AM, KFOR, and KFRX HD3, Lincoln. From
ABC News. I'm Dave Packer. The U.S. Justice Department announcing legal action against top officials in New York State, saying they're standing in the way of federal immigration enforcement.
Attorney General Pam Bondi says the suit targeting New York's governor, attorney general, and DMV commissioner is over the 2019 green light law that requires the state to tell immigrants when federal agencies request their data.
It's a green light to illegal immigration.
It's the second time the Trump Justice Department has sued a Democratic-led state over immigration enforcement. Last week it was Illinois, now it's New York.
And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're next. Get ready.
Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
At the White House today, President Trump talking about 2 phone calls aimed at negotiating an end to the war in Ukraine. The first with Russian President Putin.
We had a great call, and it lasted for a long time, over an hour this morning. I also had with President Zelensky a very good call after that.
This after a meeting at NATO headquarters on the defense of Ukraine, where Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said any peace talks with Russia must be based on realistic objectives. He called the reversal of Russia's takeover of Crimea an illusionary goal. And
the United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement.
Hegseth suggested a new non-NATO peacekeeping force for Ukraine, which the U.S. would not back should it come under attack. A prisoner swap saw Russia's release Tuesday of American schoolteacher Mark Fogel in exchange for Russian crypto criminal Alexander Vinnik by the U.S. today. Also today, the White House says 1 American and others detained in Belarus have been released. A federal judge in Boston denying a request to block President Trump's plan to offer a buyout to federal employees. The restraining order dissolved that allows the policy to move forward. You're listening to ABC News.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Keeping street conditions safe, I'm Jeff Modes, KFOR News. A snow emergency is now in effect for the city of Lincoln with parking banned on both sides of emergency snow routes, arterial streets, school and bus routes. Lincoln Police Public Information Manager Erica Thomas.
Obviously, please take your time and give yourself extra time to reach your destination.
Crews are out plowing those areas right now, and progress is limited until snowfall and winds start to subside. Winter weather advisories in effect through 6 this evening. Lincoln Police are still investigating a larceny and shoplift case at the Walmart off of 84th and Fremont from January 16th, which is part of this week's Crime Stoppers report. LPD forensics technician Becky Keller says employees said that a woman went to a self-checkout stand where she had a UPC code from the clearance aisle for the amount of 25 cents on the back of her phone. Instead of scanning the UPC for each item that she selected, she scanned this 25-cent UPC and altered the price of her items.
They reviewed the camera footage and found her actually doing it on 4 other occasions.
The woman left at a 2005 to 2011 Dodge Dakota. She has a tattoo on her chest and another on the back of her neck. A bill that would make it harder to hold private companies liable for data breaches that happened on their watch got first-round approval today in the Nebraska legislature. LB 241 would also provide a heightened standard of proof requirement in order to bring and successfully win a class action lawsuit. Opponents argued that it's an ongoing pattern of practice of putting state government favoring corporations over Nebraskans. Omaha Senator Terrell McKinney.
Why is this bill needed outside of valuing these entities over the people? That is the only conclusion I could reach, and I find a problem with that.
Elkhorn Senator Tony Sorrentino says those who oppose the bill are not doing the Nebraska taxpayers any favors.
Those who oppose this litigation are driving corporations away, the very entities that employ most Nebraskans.
LB 241 advanced on a 33-9 vote. Some flurries early this evening, then tonight clearing out and cold. 8 below zero, the overnight low, the wind chill at 18 below. I'm Jeff Moats, KFOR News.
These are today's top headlines.
Inspectors general who Trump fired hit back with lawsuits to get their jobs back. Inflation took a jump in January, signaling it could be tough to reverse it after all. Defense head Pete Hegseth says Ukraine shouldn't get its hopes up for full victory.
Don't miss a thing. Stay connected for whatever's next.
News that affects you. On air and on demand. FM 101.5, 1240 AM, KFOR.
Keep up with the local news, sports, your favorite talk shows, and pro shows on KFOR wherever you roam. Stream us 24/7 at KFORnow.com or on your mobile. You can download the free iHeart or TuneIn app and stream KFOR on the go.
The following is a paid program. The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Justice Rhodey, Hail Varsity YouTube, where to stream, where to watch. Hear us along the Hail Varsity Radio Network and Hail Varsity Radio Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Give me a follow at Justice Rhodey on Twitter. We say hi to Evan Bland, Omaha World Herald, at Evan Bland, OWH. Evan, get scared at all out on the road today?
I mean, I didn't think it was terrible. It was kind of that powdery snow.
I'm saying the other driver.
Well, yeah, I think tomorrow, day 2, to me is always the worst because you had a little bit of melting and then it freezes again overnight. At least day 1, there's not really a lot of ice necessarily that comes into play. So maybe people listening have different experiences, but for me, it's going to be that day 2 after a snow and a little bit of melting that I'm watching out for.
Are you getting to sneak off to warmer weather for Husker baseball?
Oh, man, I wish I were going to Arizona. It's not happening. I'll be throwing salt on my driveway instead of kicking sand. So, I mean, you got to love the timing of it all, don't you? I mean, baseball season's here, and you get the first big, snow result that you've had all season. So, I don't know. You watch the games on MLB.com or MLB Network, and I'm just going to be, feeling like this is maybe an early March game instead of kind of a snow fight, which they would have here. Thank goodness it's not.
Absolutely. Trevor checks in the stream, says, anyone want to trade the weather? It's minus 32 degrees today, not counting wind chill. Trevor, where are you? Tell us your location. We will pray for you, good sir. We'll get to baseball in a moment. Evan, I want to talk a little college football first, and off the heels of Stuart Mandel's mailbag of college football tiers, right? What is your response? Trevor's in North Dakota. God bless you, Trevor. To Nebraska being at Tier 4. The expectation for a Tier 4 team is to make the playoff about every 10 years. Tier 3, 3 to 5 years. Tier 2, you're about every year playoff team, or every other year. Tier 1 is reserved for Bama, reserved for Georgia, and reserved for Ohio State. When you look at where Nebraska wants to go versus where you think they're at right now with coaching and roster, do you keep them in Tier 4 because of what's happened in 2 years on the field, or do you think would you bump them a little bit based on the futures and what this year 3 could be?
I would bump them. I mean, I think it's, to me, if I hadn't heard that you lay that out, I would have said 3 to 5 years would be a reasonable expectation. And that's not based on the last 10 years. It's based on, who, like the schools that are going to invest the most in winning moving forward in the current setup. Like, I don't know that there are all that many schools that are going to be paying more than Nebraska, which is going to go all in on the rev share to the full $20.5 million to student athletes. A lot of that's going to go to football, and the NIL component's not going to go away. They have the facilities. the academics, the nutrition. Like, there's really not any reason from a resources and support standpoint that Nebraska can't be in that conversation. Now, of course, you have to find a way to win in the Big Ten, and you have to walk before you can run, and Nebraska needs to string together winning seasons and all the rest. But I think if you're just looking again at sort of the programs that are set up for success in the current model, there's no reason from just that why Nebraska can't be at least in that conversation every 3 to 5 years. And I would argue too that, like, this concept of you're going to be in there every year, I wonder how much that's even going to be the case moving forward, because it's not like even 4 or 5 years ago when, if you're Alabama, you're stacking recruiting classes and those guys are there for at least 3 years, almost without exception. I mean, you're turning things over in the portal constantly. Other schools are willing to pay your athletes. You have to retain your talent in addition to recruiting them. Alabama was not part of the 12-team CFP this year, as an example. And I think a couple of other blue bloods were probably, a close win that could have been a loss away from missing out as well. So, sure, you're probably from a fan base that's accustomed to winning and accustomed to winning consistently, like you expect to be in the CFP. But I think what we're seeing is there's more of a leveling, more of a parity, because there are more schools that are able to invest in this way. And you don't just have warm weather and NFL track records to fall back on. Like, the money component's a real thing that's leveling this thing out. So yeah, there's no reason why, in my opinion, why Nebraska can't be in that conversation in that third tier.
Evan Bland's with us, Hail Varsity Radio at Evan Bland, OWH, with the World Herald, the Pick Six podcast. You can read him, omaha.com. Evan, when I list some of these teams, this is tier 3. That's every 3 to 5 years. This is the current hierarchy. Ole Miss, Texas, A&M, Auburn, Tennessee, Washington, Wisconsin, Michigan State, TCU, Utah, and Boise State. Of those teams listed, which of these tier 3 teams have the best likelihood for sustainability in this new world of college football?
I think I put A&M pretty high in there, again, for the same reasons that we're talking about. Like, they have the fan base, they have the support, they have the money, and even in the revenue sharing era, the schools are going to have a cap, so to speak, but the NIL component's still going to exist. So there's no reason why a team like that can't continue to be competitive for, any talented player that they want to come after. A lot of those other schools I kind of think of as teams that have popped every now and again, or maybe they've had recent success. But again, like, to me, it's almost less about on-field win-loss records in the last 5 years because of how much things are changing. It's about can you be competitive financially for these guys, because we're seeing it all the time. And guys are transferring to go where there's opportunity to play and to win, but if you're not at least in that conversation or able to be competitive with some of the money you're putting out there, then you don't have any chance at all. So that's where I would start. That's going to start with the SEC schools, the Big Ten schools that are going to receive the most, television money. They're going to have the most fan support. So I would start with some of those bigger schools from that conference. Fair or not, like it or not, that's kind of the reality that we're in. And I think Nebraska fits right into that group that you're laying out there. So we'll see how it shakes out. I don't know how much continuity there's going to be year to year because of all the roster movement, but it's going to start with, do you have enough chips to belly up to that poker table and play some high stakes? And I think those are some schools that do.
Evan, when you compare Nebraska to a couple of programs in there, like a Wisconsin, like a Michigan State, we've seen those programs in the past have some success. You think of Mark D'Antonio's teams with Kirk Cousins, Le'Veon Bell, Connor Cook in a later era. Wisconsin, you go back to the Paul Chryst era, always being what felt like a year away from being a year away and contending in the Big Ten. When you look at how those programs are now, where do you think Nebraska and Iowa specifically, also in the same tier in Tier 4, kind of stack up against those teams in terms of future outlook, NIL spending power, and attractiveness in terms of program destination?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of geography, it's not all that different necessarily. I think there's kind of an understanding, or there's come to be one, that like weather maybe doesn't matter as much in football as it does in recruiting some other sports. You can watch the Packers play in the NFL playoffs. You can watch all these NFL teams play in conditions. We had to get the snow game in Philadelphia last month. Like, that's just kind of part of the deal. So I don't know how much of a game breaker that is. I just think like some of the schools that you mentioned there, they've had histories of success. They have new coaches, and I think they're just trying to find their place in the pecking order of modern college football. Like they all had something that worked at one time. Michigan State did, Wisconsin did, Nebraska did. Iowa still does to an extent, although I think it has sort of a limited ceiling with the way that it's constructed its offense. But I think those are schools that are saying, we're in financially, we're in the big conferences, we want to compete, we have the money, but like, what does that look like if you can't go out and sort of handpick the best players? Like, where do you find your edge? Is it with sort of a different offense? Wisconsin kind of went away from that identity recently. Is it recruiting to a certain style? Is it recruiting to your region? And even that's harder now because guys are going elsewhere for financial opportunities. So I think that's kind of where that comes down to for me, is like, these are schools that maybe aren't getting the best of the best. They're getting kind of that next level of guy. And I think when you do have the resources, you need to be judicious and accurate about who you invest your money in. You're not going to get everybody, but if you can build around a few guys and build an identity, like that to me is the thing that's going to allow them to take that next step up and be competitive and have a chance at a playoff run every few years.
Evan, let's go to baseball. Evan Bland with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Evan with the World Herald, at Evan Bland, OWH. And really good write-up today as you put some analysis in on Nebraska's roster, their schedule. Let me ask you this. What's a successful weekend for Nebraska baseball this weekend?
Well, I think in terms of record, 2-2 probably would be the minimum that you're looking for. San Diego State hasn't been a very good program, but the other three teams they're playing in UC Irvine, Vanderbilt, and Grand Canyon were all in the NCAA tournament last year. So if you can take one of those and be competitive in the other two, I think you take that. Obviously, you want more than that. I think Nebraska believes it can win, just about every game it plays with the roster that it has. And then I think more at a micro level, what I'm looking for is how the pitching comes together. It's always interesting, especially these first few weekends in college baseball, how those roles manifest. And I think coaches have an idea of what they have and players have an idea of who they are, but you just don't ever really know until you're playing a different opponent and these games count. So, Mason McConaughey stepping into that ace role for the first time. What does that look like? Ty Horn was a freshman last year who kind of got hit around, and then he had a great offseason. So does that carry over into that Saturday game against a ranked Vanderbilt team? And then you've got Will Walsh and Jackson Brockett, who are seniors who've been on some winning teams for Nebraska in the past. Are they able to sort of be stabilizers on the back end and give you a quality start most times out? So I think that's what I'm curious about, some of the bullpen pieces that'll come together from there. But I think just the caliber of the opponent and the caliber of the offenses that they'll be facing, to me, it's going to be a really, telling first weekend about what Nebraska has and whether it can kind of validate this idea that I think is true, that maybe the pitching is the strongest part of what this team can be.
Evan, you talked about the quality starts and what this, pitching depth's going to have to give you. What do you like about some of the experience in the bullpen? What do you like about potential midweek options? When you look at this team as a whole and what Rob Childress has put together, guys who can make strides, what do you expect out of this pitching staff as a whole? And what do you expect out of the bullpen with a couple of new pieces coming in?
Well, I think what I like about it is that you don't have, it's not like one or two guys that they're just absolutely counting on coming through. Like you think of, I mentioned Walsh and Brockett, like once you get into the 3-game weekends, one of those guys has a chance to be a midweek guy and to give you 5 decent innings every time out. It's been a couple of years since Nebraska's had a guy like that. That they have other options too. That could be a Caleb Clark, who's been a weekend guy in the past. That could be Carson Yassa, who I think is a really interesting prospect. A guy who redshirted last year, mid-90s heat. He's probably the hardest thrower on the team. And he's worked with now Rob Childress for a year to hone that command. Like that's a guy who has all the talent in the world if the command cooperates. And so I'll be watching him. TJ Coates is a junior college addition who could be a starter or a long relief kind of guy. So like you just have these guys that you're going to give them a chance early in the year and you're going to see what they do. That's what we saw a year ago when Mason McConaughey was out there, right? He's the Friday guy now. A year ago, he was kind of like let's give him a Tuesday start and let's maybe give him a couple innings in relief. And he mastered those roles and he earned something more. And so I think that's kind of what you're looking for with a lot of these guys now is you've seen it in practice or in the off season. Can that translate? I think the back end is in pretty good shape. You got Luke Broderick, who's going to be the closer to start. He's a JUCO ad, was a highly thought of prospect with some draft interest. And then a lot of guys that fans are familiar with, Drew Christo, Jalen Worthley, Tucker Timmerman, all local kids who had pretty good seasons last year, really good summers. And so you can kind of mix and match in the 7th and 8th. And those are areas I think where other teams don't have a ton of options all the time. Maybe they have a closer, but you don't know how you're going to get there. I think Nebraska feels like it can. And again, you're not relying on one or two guys, but you have like a bunch who, if even a majority of them come through, Nebraska is going to be in pretty good shape.
Evan, we're up against a hard break. I need 2 minutes on the other side. Can we keep you for some OT?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Evan Bland going to hang tight. Be patient. Don't put me on hold. I'm sorry. We got to put you on hold. But there won't be brutal music. Just incredible advertisers you want to support and frequent. Chris Schmidt and Justice Rhodey. A little more with Evan Bland. 489-1240. We'll dive into Barry Alvarez losing it. Good for Barry. But a couple more thoughts from Evan Bland with us here on Hail Varsity.
A partner at Cordell & Cordell. For over 3 decades, Cordell & Cordell has been on the front lines of family law. Divorce is more than just a legal process. It's a life-changing event that can impact your future, finances, and your relationship with your children. You've worked hard to build a life that you're proud of, and you deserve a legal partner who will work just as hard to protect it.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Lincoln area attorneys. 1221 N Street, Suite 801, Lincoln, Nebraska 68508.
Men, are you sick of the gut? No matter what you do, you still have that gut. Limitless Male wants you to know that GLP-1s can make that gut disappear. Lose 15% of your body weight in 6 months without being hungry. And Limitless Male will guide you from start to finish. Limitless Male customizes a treatment plan with the original GLP-1s. No knockoffs. Do you have back pain? One more reason to get rid of the gut. Schedule your free consult at limitlessmale.com.
If you suffer from burning, tingling, or numb feet, pay special attention as we discuss neuropathy with Dr. Ole Olson, D.C. Doctor, what is neuropathy?
Peripheral neuropathy is nerve damage in the arms, hands, legs, or feet.
What are the symptoms?
Symptoms can be numbness, burning, tingling, pain, or even loss of balance.
Is neuropathy treatable?
It's absolutely treatable, and we see amazing results.
If you have burning, tingling, numbness, coldness in your feet or hands, or balance issues, call Asuta Health today for a nerve damage screening. This screening will tell if you're at risk for serious complications and if you're a candidate for our cutting-edge treatment program. Don't wait until your symptoms are so severe nothing can be done. End-stage neuropathy leaves people confined to walkers, wheelchairs, even amputations. The first 10 callers will receive a free nerve damage screening. Simply call 402-745-3115. Act now. Call 402-745-3115 for your free nerve damage screening. Be among the first 10 callers and get this important screening for free. 402-745-3115.
want to learn how to cook, but I keep ordering takeout.
I plan to rearrange my closet, but I stopped after picking the clothes up off the floor.
Accomplishing goals is hard, but when your goal is to learn a new language, Babbel makes it easy. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel's award-winning language learning app will help you start speaking another language. Start having conversations in as little as 3 weeks.
Comment tu t'appelles? Comment tu t'appelles? Vous êtes où?
Vous êtes où?
Babbel's bite-sized lessons make it easy to learn words and phrases you'll actually use. So when someone asks,
"How's your French going?"
you can say,
Babbel est amusant et facilite grandement l'apprentissage d'une nouvelle langue. Et cela ne prend que 15 minutes par jour.
when you want to really learn another language, it starts with Babbel. Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Couple more minutes with Evan Bland with the Omaha World Herald. Great football coverage, of course, with the Big Red and Husker baseball. Evan's your man. And Evan, I want to get your take on Nebraska's lineup and offense. Do you expect pretty good power? Do you expect athleticism? And who's the leader need to be for this team offensively?
Yeah, I think it'll be the style is going to be pretty similar to what we saw last year, where you're going to have a lot of kind of pushing of the envelope on the bases, a lot of steals, walks, doubles. You'll see some home runs as well, but to me, it's more of an opportunistic sort of attack. And what made the end of last season so interesting to me was that you saw Gabe Swanson emerge and you saw Josh Caron emerge. And of course, Caron's now a professional, but like what this lineup's really good at doing is setting the table. And what it, I think, needs to maybe take that next step is have guys who can drive them in. You need those big bats, the run producers. And so that's kind of where I started about, okay, how does this lineup take that next step? And that's Gabe Swanson doing it over the course of a full season. We saw it late last year. He hit 18 home runs 2 years ago, so we know we can do it. Cale Frost, who comes in, the South Dakota State transfer, who hit 21 home runs a year ago, he can do it. Ty Stone at times, who's going to play some first base and DH. He has some power. Like, that's kind of where I would start with, like, the guys who are able to drive in these runs, have those big hits, be the run producers, because I think they have a ton of those guys who can do it at a high level. I mean, Caden Brumbaugh is probably going to lead off. Riley Silva in center field has a chance to steal 30 bases again, maybe more. So he's going to push the envelope. Brett Stokes, when he's in, Case Sanderson, who's moving to first, is going to be one of the, I think, most talented hitters in the lineup. He hit above 330 last year. So they've got guys that are going to wear out bullpens and sort of, pass the baton. But I think the thing that takes you from like contending in the Big Ten to contending for a regional host spot is you got to be able to hit for some power too. And so that to me is that spot where that I'll be watching for is, can those big sticks kind of do that to the level that Nebraska hasn't seen in a couple of years? And if they can, then you've got a recipe where you can beat pitchers and opposing teams in a whole bunch of different ways. So I think they feel like they have the talent and the personnel to do it. And whether that plays out, I think, is one of the storylines of the season.
Evan, real quick here, what do you make of the DH spot? It feels like a spot that you can get Max Butenbach's bat in the lineup. That's a guy that they were really high on in the summer. That looks like a spot that maybe you could get a jolt with Rhett Stokes in. You could play Tyler Stone if he's got an improvement against left-handed pitching. I know that was a struggle last year. It feels like you can put a lot of different guys there. That's a valuable spot. What do you make of the options Will Bolt has for bench bats in the DH spot?
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, those are the guys that I would think would be in the mix for that as well. And so, like, what it allows you to do is to alter your lineup, and you have the luxury to sort of put together a lineup card based on matchups, based on health, based on who's hot as a hitter in a given moment. Like, you don't have to ride somebody when they're cold necessarily. You have that luxury and that ability to bring in different players, and I think they're pretty versatile defensively as well. I mean, Brumbach could play the outfield if he needed to, and we've seen Stokes play all over the place. And they're bringing in Case Sanderson to play first, but he's played outfield and is DH'd as well. Butenbach can kind of play all over the field if he's not DHing. And then another outfielder that we probably should mention is Robbie Bolin, who comes in, who's a JUCO ad, another guy who had a little bit of draft attention last year, very similar to Silva, very fast. He's going to be somebody that's probably going to be on the field late as a defensive guy, if nothing else. So, again, Nebraska's made regionals before when they've had like 5 or 6 good hitters, and you kind of survive the bottom half of your lineup. I mean, Nebraska right now has like 11 or 12 where you feel pretty good on a given day. So that should guard against cold streaks, that should guard against injuries that inevitably pop up during a long season. And when you are healthy, again, it gives you the chance to optimize based on matchups and some of those other things. So they're in good shape. It's going to be really interesting to see how they piece that together, especially early on.
When we get to whenever the regionals happen, we fast forward from now to then, we'll be talking about who as a surprise arm out of the bullpen.
Surprise arm, probably a freshman. They have a bunch of good ones. I think Price Bender probably would be the guy that I'd look at as a freshman who comes in and maybe jumps into a bigger role. Interesting kid. He can throw from all kinds of different arm angles and still do it at 90 plus miles per hour velocity. So, that's an interesting one. There are some guys who had their chances last year who were former top recruits who could pop. I mean, Ryan Harrahill has the pedigree to make a jump. I mentioned Caleb Clark earlier. He's a guy who's lost his spot in the weekend rotation twice, but was a factor late last season because they moved him to the left side of the rubber and changed his mechanics a little bit. So that's a guy I think people maybe can forget a little bit about, but if he carries over what he did last year, he could be a valuable piece. And I'll throw, another guy out there who was kind of a more minor role last year, Grant Clevenger. He was a transfer a year ago, kind of got off to a slow start, and it sounds like he's impressing behind the scenes as well. And then Carson Yasif, who I mentioned, might be right near the top. Again, people don't know who he is now because he redshirted last year, but if he can sort of match the command with the stuff that he has, that's somebody who's going to be an obvious key piece for what they want to do this year.
Dylan Raiola shows up where next? Call your shot. What event is he at next?
Well, there's a Nebraska ball game tomorrow night, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's kind of not knocking you. I'm just saying that's kind of easy. Sure, he'll be there, but I mean, okay, where's he end up tonight?
I don't know. Are there any events tonight? It's a snow day. So
well, I know, but he called the snow day yesterday. Him and Emmett.
He did. The one thing I don't miss from recruiting like 7 or 8 years ago was the Periscope stuff. Like when guys would just pop up on Periscope. But maybe if he's really itching for some exposure tonight, they can just go on Periscope or something, and he and Emmett Johnson can have a rock paper scissors fight or something like that. And thousands of people would tune in for that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's all good. I just thought I'd ask, and we'll call Dylan here in a little bit and make sure there's another snow day for the kids tomorrow. What do you say,
That's
Dylan?
Right.
You gotta cancel it. Hey, Evan, appreciate the extra time, but always good to chat with you. We'll holler next week.
All right, sounds good, guys. Appreciate it.
There he is, Evan Bland with us, Omaha World Herald. At Evan Bland, OWH. Steve saying, looking forward to seeing the team in Lafayette and Frisco the next couple of weeks. Steve, send pictures, dude. Kobe says Cale Frost is going to come in and rake.
Yep.
And Kobe makes sure I know that Nebraska goes undefeated next year in football. Wisconsin will not be undefeated next year. Friend of the show, Barry Alvarez, been on with us for years, was on Madison's ESPN, and that moment Nebraska fans harken back to when the the old lineage was broken, right? You go from Frank to Billy C, and Barry is losing his mind because he knows his football team. Well, cue the Al Pacino longest yard, or I should say, excuse me, Any Given Sunday speech. Well, Barry's living in football hell right now.
This spring practice is important because after having a losing season, there has to be a pride in this team that they want to come back and bounce back and be relevant again. And I don't like it. Nobody likes. I mean, we went a long time. We worked our fannies off to start winning, win championships, and be good, and go to bowl games every year. And damn it, we did it better than everybody for 20-some years after not going for like a million years. And so now these guys have to fight their ass off to get back into that groove. And I hope that they understand that. They've got a responsibility. I don't like where we are right now. They need to bounce back and put this program back where it belongs.
Barry Alvarez, put it back where it belongs. He pretty much summarized how Nebraska fans have felt for years. And now they're going through their, did we make the wrong hire? Look, Luke Fickell can coach. Luke Fickell's a good coach. Air Raid has been punted. But the point is he went with it because he needed to, in his mind, go recruit high-profile, high-level athletes to do that. He wasn't going to be able to do it with the I formation in the run game to take Wisconsin to the next level. Where they stalled under Christ, and they had dipped a little bit to 6-6, 7-5, where, well, Burt and Illinois had surpassed him. So that was not good for Wisconsin's always botched the quarterback spot. Aside from the Russell Wilson year, it's always been O-line and run game. Find Barry will go find some dude from New Jersey or wherever White was from, or wherever James White and the other dude, Monte Ball. Yeah. And then, of course, Gordon was home cooking, Wisconsin kid. I mean, so they did it better than anybody. They got big dudes from up north in their home state. They were great linemen, guys that went on to the NFL, and they just ran the football. And occasionally they'd overperform a night game in Madtown and beat an Ohio State or take down a Michigan. But it was going to be an uphill climb because it was apples and oranges from a roster talent standpoint. But they'd outcoach you, they'd out-tough you. Well, when it comes to that edge, it is gone now. And you could hear it in his voice. Barry, he was there, man. 5 years. They pop, they go to the Rose Bowl, they do their thing.
Ron Dane.
And it's the old Rome wasn't built in a day, but it can burn down in 3.
Yep.
That's what he's going through. We'll get a Jock Doc in. What's the prognosis on Anthony Davis?
Top 10 showdown in Class A as Papillion La Vista South visits Lincoln Northeast. You can join Elijah Herbal for the play-by-play. Coverage starts at 7:05 right here.
FM 101.5, 1240 AM, KFOR.
Jackson Hewitt makes taxes feel like a yacht rock song.
Give me my biggest tax refund, please. You, me, and a lifetime accuracy guarantee.
And now get $100 just to try Jackson Hewitt. Does your tax person do that?
Say goodbye to that no guarantee tax guy.
Ready to sail through tax season? Go to Jackson Hewitt and you'll be
ready the refund.
Limited time offer for new clients. Participating locations only. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
What if your business could see beyond what is and into what can be? What if you could create more impact in every decision? What if you had a partner as visionary as you are? With Bank of America, you get access to our trusted experts, real-time insights, and digital tools. So whether you run a local shop or a global enterprise, you're backed by business solutions to make every move matter. What would you like the power to do? Find out how at bankofamerica.com/banking for business. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank sponsor of FIFA World Cup 2026.
Liberty First Credit Union is here to help you save time and money. Get a consolidation loan and conveniently combine all of your loans into one, leaving you with one fixed payment and one low-rate loan. Join Liberty First Credit Union at any of the 4 Lincoln locations, Seward, Omaha, and La Vista. Start saving with Liberty First Credit Union. Apply for a consolidation loan at libertyfirstcu.com. Approval required. Equal opportunity lender. Liberty First Credit Union. Banking with purpose.
Back Thursday with KFOR, Schmidt, Carol, and Jeff.
Response to Elon Musk press conference from both sides of the aisle.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Justice Rhodey, and it's time for a Jock Doc Wednesday. Nebraska Orthopedic Center, Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us. Dr. Brandon, are you back in the cold or are you somewhere warm?
You know, I'm supposed to be somewhere warm in the Phoenix area, but it's not very warm out here. It's like 59 to 60. That's all right. A little bit better than Omaha from this morning.
Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo.
That's right.
The hot and the cold, a nice theme as we talk Anthony Davis, the newest Dallas Maverick. Well, someday he'll be the newest Dallas Maverick. He is getting his multiple games, Dr. Brandon. What the heck is an abductor strain?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an interesting area. So there's a lot of kind of muscles and injuries that can happen in that zone. And so just anatomically, where is the adductor? Different from the abductor with a D. So adductor is basically on the inside of your thigh. So if you kind of go down, it basically comes up the inside of your thigh up into the groin area. It's a muscle group that basically brings the knee towards the inside. That'd be your adductor group. Common area that, you use a lot with athletics. And usually we'll start kind of down on the muscle. We call it, an adductor strain. Kind of stretch the muscle. You can land wrong, sometimes take off in a different direction, and that can irritate it. The concern always with these is if it moves further up, these can be called like kind of groin strains. Sometimes even these get mixed up or confused with like a sports hernia, which is really not what it is. But what can happen here is basically where this muscle group attaches along the pelvic region, and where your pelvis essentially joins together in the front. It's called the pubic symphysis. There's a big ligamentous structure that holds your pelvis together in the front, which is a ring structure. And basically, these adductor strains can migrate all the way up to the top of that adductor and get into the ligament structure in the front of your pelvis. And you can really almost develop like a stress fracture to the area, which then leads into another fancy term called osteitis pubitis, which is kind of the most severe form of an adductor strain, which you don't want to get to that point because that potentially could knock him out for the whole season.
Dr. Brandon, this sounds uber involved, a migrating, moving injury that you painted a pretty hurtful picture of. When we look at Anthony Davis, listen, he missed the last 3 games as a Laker with an abdominal strain. Any tie together? Probably not, but this guy's just kind of walking wounded is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, honestly, there's probably a connection there, Chris. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but it probably is something where these symptoms are pretty fleeting. So somebody who has an adductor strain, I'll see these folks come in with all kinds of diagnoses from elsewhere, whether it be hamstring, in the adductor, in the groin, abdominal pain. They do tend to move around, so it is a bit of a difficult diagnosis. A lot of it's more kind of an MRI diagnosis. There's so much in the area. And so it may be that this has been a lingering issue. That would be my guess, to be quite honest, is he probably had this all along, and maybe the symptoms just presented differently. And this has probably just been something that's been there bothering him for quite some time.
Dr. Brandon, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Anthony Davis missed the 2020-2021 playoffs against the Suns with a left adductor strain. He's also had some injuries, some back spasms. He's had some problems with a labrum, with a knee, with some calves, another adductor injury, the back and the foot. What is going on in his posterior chain here, doctor, that's just, weakening up and leading to a lot of these lingering issues that we see?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that really is the question you should be asking is, why is he having all this stuff? What's going on with his core? Does he not have good core strength, core flexibility? It's unlikely that that's the case. You think about the level of people willing to line up and help these guys out from a sports medicine perspective, whether it be physical therapy and all kinds of modalities from perspective. So it's probably not necessarily that. This is probably more an issue where he's had some chronic issues, maybe on like the lumbar spine side, maybe some sacroiliac stuff going on where his balance might be off. He may be compensating for another injury somewhere else. And that potentially is where this is coming from. That would be my guess.
Dr. Brandon, is this something you can, train for preventatively? I mean, can you do off-season work? And I assume you can, but I also hear Chuck Wagon and Shaq pile on Anthony Davis for years about just what's his commitment like in the off season. And I'm not there, so I'm not ready to throw AD under the bus, but I'm just curious, can you do some preemptive work yourself as a NBA star to make sure that core is good?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the other thing, too, that you have to be careful with, too, is sometimes athletes, and oftentimes that's where I see this more commonly, is they'll get in trouble for adding extra stuff. And so we see this a lot in our athletes that are doing a lot of deep squats. So squats below 90 degrees, kind of a real big vogue thing to do about 10 or 12 years ago. And then they started finding out that people were getting tons of these kind of injuries. And a lot of programs have abandoned these just because of this issue. Or if you're still doing it, you have to be really careful. And so this could be a mixture of the two. So it may be that maybe Anthony's not hitting it hard in the off season. Maybe that core is getting weak. Maybe you couple that with the years he's had in the NBA. That may be part of it. But it may also be with maybe he picked up a new workout routine in the off season and was doing a bunch of deep squats and some of these older ideas that, again, still are somewhat popular with some people. And that may have been what led to this, too.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. Anthony Davis, our topic. Of course, the adductor strain, he is out. How long? What's the recovery time with this injury?
If you shut these folks down and just away from like the high impact jumping, basketball activity stuff, get into a core flexibility, some anti-inflammatory pathways, you typically can get these folks back in about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on kind of where it's been. Is it an acute injury, just maybe been here a couple of weeks? They're probably going to get back pretty quickly for you. These are injuries where if it does migrate up into that symphysis pubis, where basically the pelvis comes together in the front, this is a great place. Well, it doesn't sound like it, but it's a great place to have a steroid injection that works quite well. It's not really a great thought to think about that. But that would be something you could try. And then on the flip side, if this is more of a chronic lingering thing, then he's going to probably struggle for a while until he can really shut it down at the end of the year. If it is more of a chronic lingering thing, then it becomes that decision of, do you want to try steroid, rest it for a couple weeks and see if you can go back? I'm sure those are some of the conversations he's had. And it does seem like this is more of a chronic issue for him.
So this is just a heal and don't re-aggravate. Is it a situation where it's easy to re-aggravate this injury?
Yeah, it really is, Chris. Especially, again, it all depends on where in that musculature the injury is. If it's more like mid-muscle belly, that's going to heal pretty quick, and I don't really see a lot of lingering issues there. But those are pretty rare to have one there. Usually, you're going to have more of a hamstring type issue as opposed to that. But as it starts to get up into the pelvis, which is my concern for him, especially with all the problems he had, once that gets up into the pelvis and into the bony structures, if you have some osseous inflammation and edema, they're going to start to struggle. Then it becomes, that's kind of how do you handle the pain and the discomfort from it.
Dr. Brandon Seifert's with us, Nebraska Orthopedic Center. A Jock Doc Wednesday, Anthony Davis adductor strain. When will AD be able to go in Big D? Time will tell. Dr. Brandon, enjoy balmy Arizona, my friend, and we'll make sure it's warm for you, sort of, when you get back.
All right, fellas. Hey, you guys take care. Appreciate it.
Good to hear from Dr. Brandon. We'll wind down a Wednesday next. Good to have you in with Hail Varsity Radio, Hail Varsity YouTube.
This is Jason Ball, president of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. Since 2013, the First Job Lincoln program has offered high school juniors and seniors direct access to career options and internships, preparing them to enter the workforce for the first time. Unlike other typical summer jobs for teens, First Job Lincoln gives students an opportunity to explore a variety of careers that they would usually not be able to access as a high school student. And First Job Lincoln provides employers an opportunity to seek out qualified candidates for future open positions. First Job Lincoln gives students an avenue to explore real career choices, helping them see themselves in Lincoln in an exciting and rewarding career. For more information on First Job Lincoln, students and businesses can visit lincolnhr.org and search for First Job Lincoln, or go to selectlincoln.org and find First Job Lincoln under the Connect with Talent menu. Thanks, and have a great week.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Plus free home delivery. Ends President's Day. Exclusively to Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
I am struggling to find something fun for the kids this summer. Any suggestions?
Yes, you have to check out Bright Light's Summer Learning Adventures.
Really? Tell me more.
My kids love the variety of topics. They're perfect for grades K through 8. Bright Light's half-day and full-day camps fit our schedule. Plus, they offer before care and lunch care.
Amazing. How do I sign up?
Go to brightlights.org to see the list of camps and to register.
Bright Lights Summer Learning Adventures, where summer fun and learning shine. Visit brightlights.org to see a list of camps. Registration opens March 1st.
Jackson Hewitt makes taxes feel like a yacht rock song.
Please, give me my biggest tax refund, please. You, me, and a lifetime accuracy guarantee.
And now get $100 just to try Jackson Hewitt. Does your tax person do that?
Say goodbye to that no guarantee tax guy.
Ready to sail through tax season? Go to Jackson Hewitt and you'll be
the refund.
Limited time offer for new clients. Participating locations only. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
Roses are red, rosés are pink. Total Wine & More has your Valentine's drinks. A tasty champagne makes Valentine's shine, and so does a glass of sparkling wine. Need a great idea? We'll help you pick. But hurry, because Friday is coming up quick. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, you'll always find what you love and love what you find. Only
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So if you were listening, the final segment yesterday, Justice Rhodey threw it down and said the lock of the night in a loaded college basketball schedule was Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky rolled. Creighton fans wish they had glass beer bottles last night. not to use on themselves, but to throw at Big Dan. Maybe a little bit of both.
Right.
That was pretty good, just pointing at the two rings.
Yeah.
What a scumbag.
What a guy.
I mean, you're supposed to be bigger and above that, right, as the coach, but I'll tell you what, man, you kind of liked it.
He just strung it all out there. He just said, hey, I'll pat myself on the back. I kind of knew Kentucky was going to do the darn thing. I knew they'd space Tennessee out. So we hit the lock of the night. So there you go, W there. But, he went out there and the Creighton fans were giving him a little bit of what's for. And, he's kind of trolling the whole game, with the thumbs up on the loose ball. Just kind of over exaggerating everything, almost ripping the blazer off on the foul inside from Samson Johnson. It was, he was definitely playing up to it, definitely, enticing the crowd to, potentially try to hurl some projectiles at him. But, he went in there and got it done. And, as much as some people may not like him, you got to respect the fact that his team went in and did the darn thing in a hostile environment where they hadn't won before.
Well, St. John's trailing Nova at half 34-32.
Oh, boy.
Patino may have to change into the white suit, like the old Louisville suit.
He might get a couple guys in white suits standing in that Villanova locker room.
Possibly. Ole Miss at South Carolina tonight. Arizona State's at Tech. Missouri is hosting Oklahoma. There will be no sighting of Stacey King v. Doug Smith or Anthony Peeler, unfortunately. Of course, you got Nebraska at number 25, Maryland tomorrow night. We'll have our prediction there. It was an upset evening at the Schmidt household because Indiana just plays Sparty well.
Yeah, they do.
And they have won in some seasons where Indiana has 16-13 squad, but they sweep Sparty. And you knew there'd be a bit of a letdown after Izzo tied Bob Knight for the all-time Big Ten mark. And Sparty wasn't feeling it last night. Indiana got him handled, and things were broken at my house because of Mama and Junior. They weren't happy. But I kind of did like to see him a little uncomfortable. Tim says, good show. Stay warm. Tim, you do the same. Appreciate it. Kobe was saying, look, undefeated was for the baseball weekend, not for football. But he says, I'll take it. And you're invited to subscribe and like Hail Varsity YouTube. Any games pop out to you tonight?
Not a lot. I kind of want to see how Ole Miss performs. Just, see what they're really made of at 25. They moved up a little bit, trying to get to the NCAA tournament under Chris Beard for the first time. I don't know. That Sparty performance yesterday, I kind of told you that I didn't like the way they were playing basketball throughout the conference late, and they dropped 3
They've
sets.
got talent, but they don't have a dude.
They don't have a big. That's the thing that scares me. They're trying out Carson Cooper in clutch time. And for me, that doesn't move the needle for a team that's supposed to be the best team in the Big Ten, and they've taken 3 conference losses now.
This may surprise us, how far a Big Ten team or two gets into the tournament.
Right.
How deep can they go? All right. Back at you Thursday. Tomorrow, Brandon Vogel, Coach Barnett, Eddie Markowski.